Hi everyone, thanks for joining today's ChemCareers webinar on careers and consultancy. We've got about 45 minutes or so today. My name is Robert Bowles. I'm the Careers and Professional Development Advisor here at the RSC. We're going to go through some slides and some presentation with some information for you to kind of think about. If you do have any questions, by all means, pop them into the chat, type them into the chat, and we'll try and go through them all at the end of the session. So we've got two fantastic speakers joining me today. We've got Jules Tully and Karen Foster. They're both from Jacobs. You'll see their names. I'm just going to ask them to say hello at this point. We'll go into a bit more detail about their roles at Jacobs shortly. Hello, Jules. Hello, Karen.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us today. And so just to really give you an overview of kind of what we're going to be covering in the session today, we're going to just talk a little bit about the types of roles that are available to chemists that are working for a consultancy firm. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you can access them. Now, particularly, we're going to be talking about those roles at Jacobs today. There's going to be a lot of parallels between Jacobs and other large consultancy companies. They're all going to do things slightly differently, but hopefully you'll get a bit more of awareness of hopefully you get a bit more awareness of what some of those roles are. Someone's just mentioned that they couldn't see the screen, so hopefully you can all see it now. Apologies for that. I'll just recap just so that you know again who's on the webinar today. Yep, so myself, Julie and Karen. So moving on swiftly, I thought I'd just start off just really giving everyone a bit of an overview of types of consultant. When within the careers team here at the Royal Society of Chemistry, we get a lot of people that hear about kind of, oh, I want to be a consultant. They've quite often heard the term, but there's not always an awareness of kind of what sort of roles that is, what they involve, and actually how you can access them. So I put this up really just to kind of give you a very quick overview of the types of consultancy that you as a chemical scientist could go into. And I've kind of really split it up into kind of three main areas. There's the kind of technical scientific consultancy, where you're solving the technical scientific problems for a client. I think Jules and Karen, that's very much what you'll be kind of focusing on today. Someone's just asked if the slides are going to be available at some point. So the slides themselves won't be, but we will be uploading the video onto YouTube afterwards. So you will be able to access it via the YouTube channel. And if I'll put my Twitter up at the end, I'll tweet that out at the end of the session once it becomes available. So as I mentioned, there's the kind of technical and scientific problem solving. You've also got the kind of business or management consultants where, you know, that's kind of obviously less chemistry specific, but again, these sort of organizations do employ a lot of chemists, a lot of physical scientists, because your ability to kind of analyze and analyze data and model data and things like that as well. And then we also have individual consultancies, or consultancies working for kind of smaller practices, where quite often this is someone where you build up your expertise in a particular area or a particular field or a particular industry over a period of time, and then that expertise becomes valuable to other organizations, so you can actually sell that expertise to clients direct. We do also have within the RSC an interest group around consultancy, so if you're interested in any of particularly that kind of last option, there's a lot of help and support that you can access to kind of help you set up as an individual consultant. But as I mentioned, we're going to focus on very much on kind of working for a larger consultancy basis today, and so I'm going to move on to that now. So we're going to talk a little bit about Jacobs, and then we're going to talk about sort of Julie and Karen's role within Jacobs. So I'll put that up, but this is the information from themselves. Jules, can you just talk us through a little bit more about kind of, you know, what Jacobs do, tell us a bit more about their business?
Yeah, so hi everyone. so Jacobs themselves are a multi-international company. So we've got quite a breadth of expertise across the across the world. But we're known for our global professional services and providing solutions for a more connected and sustainable world, as it says there. And what that actually means in reality, and a little bit more for mine and Karen's business, is we tend to work in where they call critical mission solutions, international, and our part of that business is in chemistry and materials, and particularly for nuclear power plant support. But just to give you an idea, I mean, we get involved with things like design, maintenance, strategic programs, looking at all the sort of complexities and things that are associated with the nuclear assets. Particularly me and Karen are sort of more from the UK plants, but we've also got branches and offices worldwide that look at the plants across the world. We're very technology independent. I've got quite a comprehensive experience in all kinds of the major reactor types of power plants, so whether that's the existing plants, the plants that have gone into decommissioning, new build plants, etc. So that our most valuable asset is our people and the skills that we've got. So that's what we look to maintain and to bring in as well the expertise to make sure that we can maintain that ability to cover all the different designs, operations, and obviously bring on the people we've got now, but obviously all the future generation of people to keep that going as well. But we basically cover reactor design, operations, new build, waste management, all the way through to decommissioning, to everywhere through that nuclear life cycle. So what you can see on that slide there as well is a couple of our I suppose our mottos about challenging today and reinventing tomorrow. So challenging today is about our approach to challenge what's accepted, using our expertise and knowledge to rethink the way we solve problems. So quite a lot of thinking out the box, solving problems for our clients. And reinventing tomorrow is about the outcome and the innovations, and building up for our clients so that they've got the solutions that we need for the world and the changing world that's obviously out there.
That's great. Thanks very much, Julie. I'm just going to move over to the next slide. So this gives you a bit more detail about Jacobs. Karen, can you talk us through a bit more about this? Is there any kind of key points that you kind of want to pick out that you think would be kind of interest to the audience today? Are there any kind of key things that kind of make it as attractive as an employer, or both the type of role in your particular organisation as well?
Yes, I appreciate this slide does look a bit busy, but I think what it does is it gives a really good overall impression of quite how big Jacobs is. It certainly reflects a great range in opportunities there. Julie touched on the most valuable asset being the people. I'd just like to add something in from my experience there. Is that, like Julie probably, we've worked for quite a few companies, and certainly in my view, Jacobs has probably given the greatest support ever in terms of opportunities. And also they have a great mentoring network as well. And that's to anyone of any level of experience, from people just entering the business, young people, more experienced people. There's always something to learn. And within Jacobs, there's almost an endless opportunities to network with someone, and you can either have a synergistic type of mentoring relationship where you can explore each other's experience. So there's I think this slide also reflects that type of opportunity as well. They're a great communicator as well. You can be inundated with emails, but you can get emails that talk about what job vacancies are out there, different opportunities to, for example, enroll on management programs. And I think there's a type of ethos of Jacobs that talks about, well, Julie mentioned the challenging today, reinventing tomorrow. But it also seems almost a natural environment to go above and beyond for the customer. So it's an ideal environment to developing that relationship with the customer. As a consultant, you can be involved in quite complex projects. So we might be dealing with the customer and also their technical authority. So communication is pretty key. And also you might be in webinar, as we are now, working from home, I guess, or limited access to offices. And there could be a whole range of technical experts there. As a chemist, we could be interacting with engineers, metallurgists, physicists, and of course project people as well. So it's Jacobs gives that great support and background for one to be able to enter situations like that and feel confident that one's explored the judgments and can draw on experience, and also have the confidence to go away and know someone within Jacobs who can provide that maybe additional support that's required. So I think this slide, I'm not going to go through those figures there, only to say 40 odd countries, hundreds of offices, thousands of people. On the flip side, please don't be put off by this. It is huge, but there's also that local team environment as well. So it's just a great company to work for, and the source for developing oneself is endless. I hope that helps. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant, Karen. Thanks a lot for that oversight and that insight into kind of working for a company like Jacobs. And I mean, you mentioned earlier kind of, you know, that there are a wide range of other kind of similar companies out there. I think I'd encourage everyone to kind of explore your options, see kind of which ones are right for you. You know, it might be based on your geographic location. It might be on kind of particular area that kind of interests you as well. We've got a couple of questions coming in, so I'm going to get through those, as I said, towards the end. Do keep them coming in if you would like to kind of ask any. Just moving forward, just tell us a little bit more about kind of what you do day to day. We're going to kind of move on a bit to the skills that you use after this, but if you could maybe just kind of give us, you know, a quick overview of, you know, what you do, you know, so, you know, how do you get assigned work? Where does it come from? What are the outputs from the work? You've got some information there on the screen. Julie, do you want to just kind of start us off on some of this?
Yeah, if you like. Yeah, so you were mentioning earlier about the the different types of consultants. Obviously, myself and Karen look at more of the sort of the technical side of it, but we've actually got quite a lot of business management and consultant side of this as well, which is partly how we go about winning the work. So you need to build up quite good relationships with your clients and potential clients out there. So it's about being visible and finding out where the work, I suppose, is, where the problems are to some extent. To be developed. So myself, so work in the clean energy part of the business, which is the nuclear business, as we said. So we've got a lot of key clients that we've actually got long relationships with. So from that point of view, then you're dealing with clients that you know quite well. They know us quite well and what our capabilities are, and vice versa. So a lot of the role is about keeping up to date with that, understanding what the problems are, speaking with people, but also then you've got the when you've actually got a problem that comes in, and the client can come to you directly as well. And in that case, we're then providing you the technical support, which may often involve things like troubleshooting and going to customers to either resolve issues. And we also work not just on directly with the customer. Sometimes we work in collaboration with the customer, and we also work with other business consultancy firms as well. So we're not often out there. Sometimes we make collaborative working, and sometimes that's the best way to find the solutions and the strengths. So you need to be quite open-minded and really know the skills that you've got and where the skills are elsewhere to sometimes help provide the best solutions for your clients out there. We do quite a lot of travel. We can often be quite office-based, but we do travel as well. And we've also got facilities such as laboratories and test rig facilities. So the actual variety of work can be very varied, and it can vary on a day-to-day or a year-to-year basis, depending what you're doing.
So Jules, can I just touch on that a little bit more? We've had a question coming in just really kind of asking about, you know, some of, and maybe as your voice is gearing up a little bit there, sorry. Karen, could you maybe give some examples of some of the chemistry that you've used or some of the projects? Obviously, we're not asking you to break any kind of commercial confidentiality or anything, but can you just give us an oversight of some of the things that you might be asked to kind of look at and how you bring your chemistry into that?
Right, well, we do have laboratories still, including wet chemistry laboratories. There's quite a big laboratory and testing facility on Birchwood site where in the office days Julie and I were both based. So I certainly cut my teeth in a wet chemistry laboratory, and there's still surface analysis techniques used as well, such as scanning electron microscopy. We can draw on mass spectrometry as well, UV vis, lots of things that I'm sure our audience will probably recognise. And then the testing facilities are looking at different types of materials, mainly steels in different environments. So we might tweak the pH and the contaminants available, contaminants there in the environment to see how these materials react. So these projects can be ongoing for weeks, months, and even years if we're looking at fatigue testing. And when I think of this, I don't know if they still do this in the IKEA stores where there's a chair being continually pummeled to death. There was an example of to what extremes IKEA tests the furniture, and that's a form of fatigue. So these tests can continue for years. And the clients who supply these materials are clearly interested in how these materials would withstand various environments, say in seawater environments, for example, for offshore facilities. It may be defence projects, how these materials would react on various platforms, the ships, submarines, etc. I'm mainly office-based. I have acted as task manager in some of these tests in the laboratories, but I'm now mainly office-based. So the work that comes in I'm usually involved in independent nuclear safety assessments, the acronym INSA. So we might get, it could be, for example, an in-service inspection report on a steam generator. Steam generators in nuclear power generating facilities. If one of these is out of commission, it can cost millions of pounds per day. There is redundancy, and there's usually more than one of these steam generators. They're quite big pieces of kit. Some of them can be as big as 4 or 5 story building, something like that. So they're quite adverse environments. It's really a big kettle on a simple scale. So it's transferring heat from the nuclear source to a secondary system where the water's piped up to drive the turbines. And in order to, so this is just an example, I guess, one of the bigger ones that I become involved with. So the width of the pipe between the active side, if you like, where the water is heated in the core, to the secondary side, which is not reactive and is piped off to the turbines, as I said, could be just you know, a few millimeters thick in some cases. So protection of this environment is key, and that's what the inspection reports do. They send the results to us, and we can form an independent safety assessment on these and give our view on whether we think that, you know, we give our view as to whether the facility is safe to continue. It's not just on one person's decision, by the way. There is a team that carry out technical reviews, project reviews. There's QA is extremely important in our job. And if we are called upon whereby someone in the customer the customer establishment may challenge our view, then we may be called to support this with our own project team. So it's good to be on your toes with these things, but it's fascinating subjects to be involved with. So I guess that's just one example.
And I guess that's part of the interest in the role and part of the challenge, isn't it? It's kind of, there's always new topics being thrown at you. There's always new things to find out. You're always interacting with a wide range of other professionals, and kind of you're learning from them as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So in our team, I'm a chemist on a team of engineers, mechanical engineers, structural engineers. There's metallurgists, and then we work closely with teams of physicists, experts in thermal hydraulics, and then there's the project and planning teams keeping us all in order, so in the line. But it's a great relationship, because we don't just get sent a task and say, right, got to deliver this in 3 months. It is a very close relationship with the planners and the project people. And there's no shame in saying, yeah, you've given me 3 weeks to do this. Well, you know, for this and this reason, it might actually take 5 weeks. And as long as you've clearly looked at it and maybe given a reason, i.e. that the information is a bit more complex, or we might need to go out for more information, it might need more technical discussion. It is a really strong relationship. There's not a tell about it. It's a discussion based, and we respect the planners and the project people, because they're the ones who normally are called in line by the customer, but they also respect us in that, you know, we need the time in order to be able to form or provide an informed view, and that does take research and experience. But it's a fascinating environment to working with that range of expertise.
And so maybe a question related for that. Maybe Jules, you can answer this one. Had a question from Amy, is basically saying, you know, how do you balance that working week in the consultancy? You know, do your customers push to have everything done yesterday, or do you expect to work all hours? Now, from what you said earlier, that doesn't seem to be the case. But can you just expand a bit more on the kind of pressures on your time? Are you under kind of pressure to deliver, or is it that the kind of quality and the value that's more important? And how do you kind of reconcile those two?
So that's quite an interesting question. So obviously clients always want things delivered as quickly as possible, because obviously, you know, for example, if it leads into them, I don't know, loss in generation or stuff like that, then obviously they're looking to get their resolution resolved as quickly as possible, so they can get back to normal business. Excuse me, my voice. But as Karen was saying, I mean, some of these problems are quite complex. And so reasonable time has to be given, and it's a case of understanding what the problem is, writing out the appropriate case for that, and making sure that you've got the appropriate time into it. But you can manage that as well by the size of the team that you can put together, the skills that you need. So depending on different tasks, there are tasks that you can end up working on yourself, and obviously you do take that sort of ownership of it. But again, it is about making sure you've still got that right appropriate work-life balance, and I don't think anybody really expects that to be overly challenged these days, so things have to be appropriate. But saying that, we also do have arrangements and if you like, arrangements that are in place, that if something is very, very urgent, that we have the facilities and the ability to call out people to turn around things very quickly for clients in certain circumstances. So an example of that might be, for example, in some of our laboratory analysis that we do, maybe in support of one of the power plants or something, that they're looking for an analysis that's part of an investigation. It might be preventing a return to service or something like that, or they might want a material checked for compatibility with the circuit it's going to be put into and things like that. So they might want that expedited, so we can bring that in, turn that around and get that back to them. And we do have contracts in place which they do have a timeline on them, things like that. But we're also resourced up within company, if you like, to have the people that we can call on and do that. Saying that, there are always challenges on timescales, sometimes where things don't go quite as you planned and something else comes up. So that is where we need to manage that as well. And again, it's about having that close relationship with the clients, bringing them along with what's going on. And if everybody knows what the situation is, and that very often can be addressed reasonably. And there is this one thing that normally, as long as you do if you do something right, you do it once, and actually in the end that takes a lot less time than actually having to go back and go back and go back.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got a lot of questions about kind of, you know, entering into different entry points into the industry, but we'll kind of maybe get to those kind of towards the end. If we just move on a little bit, and maybe just if you talk a little bit about, I know you've touched on some of these previously, but are there any of the skills that you need to kind of succeed in the role that really kind of stand out? I mean, from the way you've been talking about it, the communication skills seems to be really quite key. But obviously you then have to have that kind of, you know, you talked about your trust and integrity and not cutting corners, the technical skills. Are there any of those that kind of really stand out as the kind of most important, do you think? Karen, can you maybe take that one?
Sorry, yeah. Communications, I can't emphasize that enough. And it starts from all levels. We can become encased in our own little rabbit hole in our desk, and we're thrashing away at a problem, and it's always good at quite an early stage to talk to someone about it. It might be line manager, it might be another technical expert. There's 2 or 3 people in our team, for example, and I will call upon them to wear a view, and they're not chemists, but they can have the overview and say, have you tried this, or have you spoken to such a body? So communication right from day to day, from the bottom up, whichever way you prefer to see it, is very important. Communication with the customer. In having said this, it's also quite key to go and speak with project as well. So in our job as a technical expert, we wouldn't just ring up the customer, we will go into project and keep them involved. And if people are new to the technical areas, they may ask someone else to contact the customer because they have a better overview. So it's that sort of communication as well. So with your own team, with the project, the business development area that Julie touched on earlier, and then with the customer as well. And it's communication, etc. as well with mentors. There's a great network mentoring within Jacobs. I might just mention as well, because I'm sat here thinking, gosh, when I was 18, 19 years old, because I did my degree whilst working full time, and to where I am now. So if I can maybe an example of someone I mentored when they first entered Jacobs, I guess, from university, and they started off in the testing laboratory, and I think they've been probably with us maybe 8-9 years, and they do test management with a bit of project management, and this individual really developed into that role, and communication has been key. This person's known for their integrity, known for thrashing out a problem, and also alerting people early on if you think there is an issue. So if I can just give that as an example, yeah. I think sometimes it can be quite scary looking at some of these huge consultancies, but yeah. There always is a way in, and it's just speaking to people and developing within that network, if that helps.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So that leads us quite nicely on to, I think, the next slide really, which is about kind of finding roles. So we have had some questions around things like, what entry point? So do you need a PhD? How can you how soon could you join a company like Jacobs after a PhD? Where can you start? How do you get that first bit of experience? There's also ones around things like what advice would you give to graduates looking to start a career in consultancy as well? So should we maybe start with that kind of, you know, how you get established within kind of consultancy roles? Julie, do you want to maybe kind of quickly take that? You know, what you're looking for in your job?
Yes, I mean, this is pretty much, I think, most of the big consultancy companies. We do have an accredited graduate scheme. In fact, I think within Jacobs it's called the Graduate Development Programme. And actually for the chemists out there, this is also a Royal Society of Chemistry accredited graduate scheme. The graduate scheme itself, the way it runs is the graduate intake we take in each year does cover all disciplines, so all the different engineering disciplines, as well as chemists, chemical engineers, there might be electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers, etc. as well, and all of those are accredited by the relative body materials as well, I should mention. So that graduate scheme is a structured programme that runs for about 2 years is the initial. So you're brought into the business, and then obviously there's a number of objectives and things. But it's a very it's a very organised scheme, and it gives you lots of opportunities to develop quite a lot of personal skills as well as some of your technical background, and gives you an opportunity to see different parts of the business as well. So you might come in as a chemist, but you might decide that's not quite where you want to be after it. So there's flexibility to where you go. But at the end of the first 2 years, and then you obviously then taken into the main business roles and the team where you're positioned. And there's information about that on the site as well. And in terms of the entry level and how to find out about that and different things we do and how to get into Jacobs and organise interviews and stuff, we've got a virtual recruitment booth. I think some of this has come up a little bit because of the COVID-19 and trying to attract people that way. But there's links such as that that you can go into and log into, and you can get access to our careers page. There's interviews there with some of our graduates who've previously been on the scheme, and you can sort of hear their experiences about it and stuff as well. We also partake in quite a lot of the UK careers fairs, and we also have an early careers fairs, and there's actually a short video there about one that was ran earlier this year for our business as well, and the people in that. Following the graduate scheme, we also support the graduates then to carry on for CChem, which is obviously again our mentored program as well. So the opportunities continue. You don't just stop after you're a graduate. Your development continues, and it can continue beyond that. And in terms of mid and late career chemists and career progression there as well. So if you'll find we've got things like, you know, we do annual reviews, we've got tools, appraisal processes, there's different recognition schemes within the business that we use as well for people, and also there's worldwide opportunities. And the Jacobs Careers website is available publicly online, so it's not just for the internals, you can access it yourself. But we take on people in mid-late careers as well. In fact, the way I joined the company is I actually joined from working on the power plant myself. So I used to work for Magnox in EDF prior to joining Jacobs about 9 years ago. So I'm 9 years in consultancy, and I was about 15 years as a power plant chemist before that. So there's different stages and different experiences that come in, and there's value in bringing in different ones. And then I think, as Karen was saying earlier, once you're in as well, the career progression opportunities, they don't stop. And because of the broadness and the wideness of the variety of work we do and the locations, there's plenty of opportunities out there to take your career wherever you kind of want to have the energy and drive to take it to.
Fantastic. And can we just expand maybe a bit beyond the kind of, you know, the power plant and the kind of plant system? Does the company Jacobs get involved in things like, you know, the more pharmaceutical or life sciences? Do you get involved in, as an organisation, with sort of more materials chemistry? Obviously, there's kind of materials component to what you do. You know, I guess is how broad does the expertise at a company like Jacobs go? Do you find yourself getting specialist, or do you become more or do you just get exposed to lots of different areas over your career? Karen, or oh, sorry.
I'll let Karen take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can. Sorry, that's a bit of a general open-ended one, that one.
No. Oh gosh.
You may not be the right person to ask that question to. Apologies.
No, not at all. In fact, we joined Jacobs just over a year ago, because Jacobs actually bought our other consultancy, or our side. So they bought up the nuclear arm of what was Woods, and that one thing Jacobs did wonderfully well was, it was 1 month the sale was complete, and the following month it was COVID. So Jacob had to integrate a significant nuclear business into their fold, so to speak, and at the same time get to grips with all the IT to enable us, who were at the time on a completely different network, to work from home. And it's like with anything, I guess, when someone new takes you over and there's a little bit of, oh, how is this going to go? It wasn't long before we realised just how professional Jacobs was, and how much, well, they really do put the staff first, because their efforts to get us all working from home were just brilliant. And all the support we got from COVID. So it's a bit of a long-winded way of saying I'm still getting to grips with just how big Jacobs is. And right. I guess rather than give anybody a false impression, it is just to go on the generic Jacobs website. I've been on it myself, so that's from, not within the company, just to see what was there. So even, sorry to sidestep it a bit, but I think that might be the quickest way of answering that question. Yeah, it's massive, and there's endless opportunities.
So I think if I could just interject there, sorry. I think one of the things that everyone kind of listening could take away from that is actually, be willing to kind of go and research options, find out about the company that you're going to join before you join them. If you want to see if they've got opportunities in your area of specialism. Most companies do have kind of websites that are very up to date. Quite often you can look on things like LinkedIn to find people that you might know that could give you some advice into it as well. So I think there's lots of opportunities for you to kind of find some of that information out for yourself. So I realise that's a kind of dodging the question a little bit. We are going to make the slide. We're not going to make the slides available afterwards, but you will be able to access the recordings. Do keep the questions coming in. We've got a few more minutes left. I'm just looking through to see if there's any more coming in.
Sorry, Robert, just a quick point. It's probably stating the obvious, but Jacobs are on LinkedIn as well, of course.
Okay.
So it's another way to access. Yeah.
Fantastic. Here's one. So how does being a consultant work maybe differ from what the employee of the customer would be expected to do, I guess? So I guess it's at what point does a customer decide to seek the input or the expertise from a consultant, and why would they do that rather than kind of relying on the expertise or what they might have in-house? Can you just explain a little bit about that relationship between when they go to a consultant or consultancy, or how you interact with the staff within that organization that are your customers? Julie, do you want to have a quick go at that one, if that's clear enough?
Yeah, I think so. So again, it depends on the client and the task. So I mean, within the business, I mean, some of the consultancy is almost like just buying a service. So for example, we've mentioned about, for example, something in the laboratories or something, or maybe some chemical analysis, and so a customer there may just be looking for a straightforward analysis, test this results and turn it around. On the other side, we do have relationships with some clients, particularly in support of some of the new, I'll go back to those nuclear power plants again, and this is where where we can support the clients is a little bit in supplementing some of their personnel. If they're focused, for example, on generation, and a particular issue comes up, we can bring in expertise, and we've got the time and maybe the resources to go and investigate things, which on site they may not have all of those skills. They obviously know how to run the plant and they know what the problem is and that sort of stuff, but they possibly need to get somebody to go and do some research, or take something to a slightly different level, and that's what they can get from us. There's also, it's a way of increasing resources as well, so we can be there, and obviously we can help where perhaps the client may not always have the time to do an investigation. If there's a particular issue, again, they may prefer to outsource it if they haven't got the time to do that in-house, for example. So there's all different reasons why that can take place. But we are also obviously able to take away a specific problem and put full-time focus onto it, which again is not always that straightforward if you're handling with several different things that you've got to deal with on the site.
Fantastic. So we've you talked about kind of your graduate recruitment process. We get asked a lot about people that, I've got no experience, how can I get my first experience? How would you kind of recommend that people are approaching for, what do you look for in maybe a graduate that you're taking on that hasn't got a lot of experience? What are you looking for maybe from a PhD that has maybe just finished a PhD within the last year or so? How would you encourage them to make themselves stand out from, I guess, the other candidates that might be applying? I guess these are quite competitive jobs. What do you look for that kind of makes the people that you hire kind of stand out, do you think?
So it's Karen, is that all right?
Yeah, Karen, go for it. Yeah.
I guess it's making that very first key impression. So sorry, we're back to the CV, and it's keeping it sharp, to the point, so that some really busy people will have a look and something catches their eye. So it's, if you're submitting a CV, I think it's a great idea perhaps to pass it on maybe to a referee or someone who is quite senior in management, for example, and just running it past them and saying, would this be enough to think, yeah, let's put that in the maybe pile. So I think that's the first step. I'll also say that in a lot of big companies, it's not necessarily the technical person who first sees that, it's HR. And in some, I know a few public companies where you've actually got to get past the HR people. So again, it's got to be something that stands out to be different in that. So usually, I think a good approach, and this is a Jacobs template as well for CVs, is that you use a paragraph about yourself, a personal statement. So without going into maybe what GCSEs, A levels, etc. degree, is to provide that paragraph, the short paragraph on yourself, and make it punchy and to the point, but not too full of superlatives, and maybe cut out a few verys and maybes and things like that to make it punchy, catch someone's attention. And then certainly do your research on the company before you secure the interview. Research the company. Be aware that the interview might be virtual. I had an interview a few weeks ago for an internal job, and I was in my office, which was my 4th bedroom. I am being interviewed by 3 quite senior managers. I did put a suit on. I did pretend I was going to an actual interview, so be prepared for that as well. Also, I guess you might be more called upon to provide a short presentation on why you think you might want the job. So it's maybe these sort of key things to practice. The ability to present is, I think, becoming more and more crucial. So that might be a good thing to practice as well. Just have something up your sleeve, about 5 minutes, on why you think you might want a certain job. Just going back to the CV, always personalise it. Always go through it for each job. It's can be tedious and time consuming, but it's very worthwhile doing. If you're using more or less the same CV to apply for a different job, read it through and personalise it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crucial.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. So we're kind of coming towards the end now. I'm just going to go on in a second to kind of some of the support that's available from the RSC. Just before we do, I've got one more question, which I think is a fantastic. Well, there's two questions that are fantastic. One from Jack says that have you worked for clients and consultants? And so what's the biggest difference between the two work environments? So if you could maybe just have a think about that just for a second. And then the other question is, what's been the most challenging task of being a consultant that you've had to face? That's from Diane. So Julie, maybe you can combine them or answer them separately, and then we'll just move on to...
So before becoming a consultant, I used to be the client. So I have actually worked on both sides. And it is kind of an interesting comparison, because when you're the client, you're always thinking, why can't they do this quicker? Why do they cost so much money? Where does all this come from? And then when you're the supplier, it's like, why don't they realise how much it takes to do? Why don't they realise how much time I need? so it is very much like that.
So it sounds like that's where your communication skills come in, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's where it's all about communication. It's all about building that relationship, but it's also about what we mentioned earlier about that trust and integrity, because actually if you deliver and they know that you're delivering it to the best of your ability and what you're saying is true, and you still produce the results, then and that helps with making that case. In terms of the most difficult, oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of a situation that
Karen, can you think of one off the top of your head?
Oh yeah, very easily. So I'm in my glad rags, about to board the bus for our Christmas lunch. And we're usually very well wined and dined for the Christmas lunch. This is going back a few years, about 5-6 years. So it was about the Friday before Christmas. I delivered an independent assessment maybe a couple of weeks back about a key piece of plant, and there was a sudden development, and half an hour before getting on the bus, I was asked, very politely actually, but would I attend a video com? It's tripartite, so it was 3-sided, ourselves. So I was in there with 2 or 3 senior engineers from our side. There was our customer and our customer's technical authority. And that was a very much thinking on my feet. Of course, being a VidCon, I was also in my glittery top in VidCon with the client. It was quite an arduous half hour, and we came out, and I was so relieved that the assessment that I provided a couple of weeks ago was sound technical judgment. Of course, it had gone through all the various channels, but it's one of those I had a strong feeling about. And based on that, a decision was made by the customer. I missed my Christmas dinner, of course. I ended up walking home in my heels. But yeah, that was a tough one. What was nice was I went in the following Monday, and the operational manager was there with a bottle of champagne and a bunch of flowers. So that was quite nice. Fantastic. But that was a tough call. You're in a relaxed mind, ready to go and party, and then you're called into something which is quite high profile. I think that was probably the most demanding, but probably one of the most rewarding moments as well.
Fantastic.
Be prepared for anything. If you've been in the guides or the scouts, then
you're good to go. Fantastic. Thanks ever so much. I'm just going to finish off just with this slide. This is a slide that we include in most of our webinars. We've obviously covered a lot of ground today. Hopefully you've got a bit more of an insight into kind of what it's like working for a larger kind of multinational technical consultancy company. There is more support available if you are an RSC member. You can access it via our careers website. You can also book career management consultants with myself, my colleagues. That can really cover any aspect of your career, really, from kind of CV and cover letter checks right through to kind of working out what you want to do next, you just email us at careers@rsc.org. Jules, Karen, thanks ever so much for your time today. It's been really interesting to hear more about your role, hear more about Jacobs, and also hopefully it will give some of the people on the call today some insight into some of the things that they can, another career option for them. Just before we sign off, we did have one question as well about, do you kind of work with sort of 0-hour contracts where there's kind of expertise that you're looking for that you don't have in-house, or kind of from kind of semi-retirement, or do you kind of, have there been instances when that's happened, and how might someone kind of access those sort of opportunities?
Go on.
I would just say, certainly on our team, we've had our people retired have come back on the odd, it's 0 call-up contracts, call upon their expertise in that way. And I guess even more so now, because they can work from home on a lot of occasions, they don't mind. It's something they're comfortable with, and as long as it's time organised to suit both parties, then it's quite a seamless transition, really. So that's certainly it's quite common in our environment, if that helps.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much. So there are career opportunities at every stage of your career, by the sound of it, really, from kind of fresh graduates, fresh from doing your PhD, right through to kind of when you're kind of semi-retired. Thanks ever so much, Julie. Thanks very much, Karen. It's been lovely to talk to you. As I mentioned earlier, the webinar will be has been recorded, and we will be uploading it as well. So we'll let you know when it is available. And I'll just wish you all goodbye. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. Very welcome. Good luck, everybody.